Greetings, friends. It's me, Wayman, and this is a video going out to It's the Superfly, and I watch his videos pretty regularly, and all this commotion about would Jesus freak slice and dice his own kids, I find serious conversation because it needs to happen. However, I find it kind of humorous, and a lot of it I think is a misunderstanding of mythology in general, simply because people, I believe, don't read enough mythology to understand the context of the stories. And this isn't going to be another context video because there's definite human sacrifice and pretty atrocious things that the gods demand people do. And it's in the literature, and there's no way of getting around it. And at one point, human sacrifice definitely was acceptable, but later on, it was not. So what they would do is they would go back, they would backpedal, and try to fix those theological ideas in the literature, so it would not be okay for human sacrifice to happen. But there was one instance that probably happened and was later aborted, which was the sacrifice of Agamemnon's daughter Iphigenia in the Iliad. He needed to get the winds to blow so he could sail to Troy. And later in the play Euripides of Iphigenia, it's said that she's replaced by a goat or a deer at the last minute when nobody's seen, and she's whisked away to the temple of Artemis where she served as a priestess. And so that's a change there. And just like Abraham, he stops at the last minute. A ram is switched in, but it's still humorous later in the story. He, I believe, comes off the mountain alone, which is interesting. So a lot of these switches happen. Also in Judges 11, where Jephthah makes a votive libation to the gods. In Greek, it would be kind of like a votive libation, and you were held to those kinds of promises that you would make to the deities. And in mythology, if you made a promise and you didn't keep it to the deities, they would come looking for you in a rather harsh way. And so, that had to be carried out. And I'm pretty sure that the story went that he did kill his daughter. But then, again, it's made to look as a pious thing. The girl says, oh, I'm a sacrifice to God. Let me go mourn my virginity, and then I'll come back. So it's pretty interesting how the writers and later theologians softened these hard places in the literature. There's also a place in Kings, maybe somebody can post it below, where Israel's warring against the city. He sacrifices his son on the wall, and Israel is driven back by that deity. Yahweh's beaten at that point. It's a pretty interesting story that was allowed to survive in Jewish literature. So a lot of times these things did in fact happen. But here's a modern day handling of it that may match it more than anyone. It was from Deanna Laney back in 2003. This is from the TylerPaper.com, and you can read this on Crime Library, who on Mother's Day in 2003 ended up stoning her kids in the front lawn. A jury found Mrs. Laney, a 43-year-old housewife who came home, schooled her children, not guilty by reason of insanity for stoning her sons to death on Mother's Day in a weekend in 2003. Joshua 8 and Luke 6 were found dead in the front yard of the family's New Chapel Hill, and then 14-month-old Aaron was found seriously injured in his crib. Mrs. Laney's attorneys admitted during the trial that she had stoned her children, but contended that she was insane and did not know what she was doing. And Mrs. Laney told the authorities God told her to kill her children. And I think the sociologist Dietz ruled in that case, and also in the, well, he was an advisor of that case, and also in the case of the lady that drowned her kids. I can't think of her name right now. Andrea Yates. So at that point, the behavioral scientist, Dietz, totally screwed up by his advice and by his ruling these two cases, where he said that Yates should be held accountable, but here Ms. Laney should not. So there was that whole conflict, but you can read about that. But that's far from it. If you want to read something on sacrifice, check out the Golden Bough. I like this text. It's an older study done on mythology about human sacrifice, and written by George Fraser. And chapter 26 of that, the sacrifice of the king's son. I'll post it in the links. It's online. You can leaf through it. He does some pretty good studies. Another thing that I wanted to say is that in mythology, the gods recommend humans to do things that are pretty deplorable. And Plato, in the Republic, said that these stories of the gods should be censored. And only because he believed that the true idea of the deity was virtue. And the gods, in order to be just gods and virtuous gods, need to embody the highest forms of virtue in order to be just and pure deities. And so all these other things that were attributed to gods as evils, in his republic, they would have to be censored because only good things could be said about the gods. So Christianity, taking that cue, has really toned down the harshness of the Old Testament deity, following along that line, and at times you will see it censored. And so when somebody speaks out on it, and what it really is, it really brings it to the forefront, which is pretty funny. So disgusting and funny. So do I think Jesus Freak would go over the edge and slice and dice his own kids? I don't know, because I don't know Jesus Freak's mental state currently. I'm not able to say that, but I've known that other people have, and it's pretty interesting indeed on what gods will tell people to do. It's all over the place in mythology and in literature and in religious literature. They stone people in Iran. So take care, friends, and hopefully this was interesting. Hopefully I didn't get cut off, but a little bit of rambling. But take care, and remember, if everybody's thinking alike, then somebody isn't thinking